Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I'm back to continue on in the story, Escape Down the Raging Rapids. So this is a DJ Dillon adventure story. In fact, it's the last book in the series, book number 10, and we are on chapter 4, An Unspoken Threat. DJ and Alfred had run about half the way across an acre of gravel when DJ panted, "See that man with the beard? I bet he's a doctor." "I sure hope so. And even if he isn't, at least we'll be safe from the fires because there's nothing to burn here. We can stay in the water until the danger passes if we have to." A tall, good-looking young man wearing blue jeans and a white t-shirt left the others, accompanied by a woman. He appeared to be in his late 30s. She looked to be in her late 20s and was deeply tanned. She wore a red bandana tied over her short blonde hair. The couple hurried to meet DJ and Alfred. "Hi," DJ called, waving again. His hopes soared as the couple approached. DJ called, "Boy, are we glad to see you. We saw you yesterday when we were hiking with Camp Sugar Pine kids. I forgot my sweater, then we stopped for lunch. So Alfred and I went back for it this morning, but the fires cut us off from the camp." The slender man returned DJ's smile. "I'm sorry about your problems, but welcome to our camp. I'm Brad Thornton, owner of the rafting company and chief guide for the trip. This is Connie Gaynor. She's the guide and captain of the other boat. I'm DJ Dillon, and this is my friend, Alfred Milford." They shook hands all around as Alfred explained, "When the wind changed and the fires cut us off from Camp Sugar Pine, we figured the river would be the safest place until the fires burnt themselves out." "Safest place is to go downriver with us," Brad replied with a warm smile. "You qualified as Class 5 river on Class 5 rivers?" What's Class 5 rivers?" DJ asked. Brad's smile widened. "You just answered my question. You're not experienced on the most difficult rivers for rafting." "Too bad," Connie said. "We're short-handed for paddlers." Brad explained, "If you were qualified on this class river, you'd be welcome. Apparently, some of our party got cut off by the fires. They signed up for this trip but haven't shown up. We're already late, and we've waited about as long as we can." Connie nodded. "We're about to shove off. That man and the teenager with him just barely made it." She turned and pointed. "Odell and Tobin Swazi, they're brothers. Odell's the older. They said they were delayed by the fires too. Haven't been here more than 10 minutes or so." DJ asked, "How can you go down the river when there are so many wildfires burning out of control?" "Easy," Brad replied, pointing to the far bank. "See those cliffs? Solid granite. It's pretty much like that for 100 miles. Oh, there are places where some trees and brush grow, but mostly the walls on both sides of the river are bare rock. They can't burn." 100 miles? Alfred asked in surprise. "This is a strange river, boys. It's entirely in the primitive wilderness area. Once you start downriver, you can't stop, and you certainly can't turn back. It's sort of like a roller coaster, except much, much longer and scarier, but fun." Brad continued, "There's no way out except maybe by helicopter at certain camps. That's what we call the places where we stop for the night. and there are no roads or anything else in or out of the river. It's a rafting voyage nobody ever forgets. At the river, the Swazi brothers pretended to be busy with one of the rafts, but their suspicious eyes were on DJ, Alfred, and the two rafting guides. "Did you see her point at us?" Odell hissed. "You dumb kid. Now look what you've done." "The kid's not pointing us out. She is. So maybe she's telling him we just got here." "Yeah, and maybe the boy's telling her you burnt down that house." "So what if they are? It don't make no difference. We could jump in this raft and shove off right now. There's plenty of grub." "They'd be too surprised to stop us. We'd get away clean." "You're talking stupid. This is a Class 5 river, the meanest, wildest, craziest kind there is anywhere. Even with our years of rafting experience, the two of us couldn't handle this raft alone." Tobin considered that reality, then smiled crookedly. "First chance I get, I'm going to warn those kids to keep quiet. But even if they did tell on us, nobody can do anything until we get to town where there's some law. So if those two kids go with us, maybe they can have an accident." "An accident?" "Sure, a bad one. Without witnesses, nobody can prove we burnt that place. No witnesses, nobody to testify against us. Stop saying we burnt that place. Well, you were there. That makes you just as guilty as me." "No, it doesn't." "Oh, yes, it does. And I intend to do something about the witnesses. I can't believe you're dumb enough to hurt those kids." "I told you, it'll be an accident. We'll be in the clear, and we won't have to worry about those two kids ever again." Odell didn't say anything anymore. He stared suspiciously at his younger brother and was afraid. Something really strange happened to Tobin in the last year or so. Odell didn't like it. He feared that Tobin's anger and hatred, now directed against the two boys, would be used against an older brother. Odell feared he would be in just as great a danger as the boys. In the middle of the gravel bar, DJ and Alfred were getting acquainted with Brad and Connie. Connie said, "Well, you boys probably are ready for a cool drink and something to eat. Come on down to the rafts and we'll get you both something." DJ smiled his thanks. "Alfred, you go ahead. I want to talk to Mr. Thurston a moment." Alfred walked off with the girl guide, leaving DJ alone with Brad. "Mr. Thurston, I need to ask you something." Okay, Brad. Call me Brad." "Okay, Brad, is there a doctor or nurse in your group?" "That one with the beard's called doctor, but he's with a college or something. A PhD, doctor of philosophy. Not a medical doctor. Why? Got a problem?" "Something bit me a few hours ago. An insect. It doesn't hurt, but I kind of would like to have it looked at." Brad turned, cupped his hands over his mouth, and called, "Connie, bring the first aid kit for this kid." DJ said, "Thanks. Anybody got a walkie-talkie, CB radio, or anything like that?" "I'm sorry. No. I can understand how worried you two boys would be about calling your parents, but there's no way to do that from here. Nobody's going in or out of this place until those fires burn past, and that may take days." DJ kicked a small pebble with his tennis shoe. I see. DJ, is there any chance that someone from your camp would come looking for you? Nobody could get through those fires. The only search would have to be from air. But we've noticed that all the planes and helicopters have stopped flying over. Nobody's going to spot us today, I guess. Connie approached with the first aid kit, a sandwich, and a can of cold soda. Alfred followed her, munching on a sandwich and sipping from his soft drink can. Connie handed the food and drink to DJ and asked, "You got a scratch or something?" DJ sat down on the old log near the riverbank. "Insect bite," he said, pulling up his pant leg. "I've got some antiseptic and I'll put some antiseptic and a bandage on it," Connie said. "You enjoy this sandwich and soda." DJ was surprised how hungry he was. He'd long ago finished the water in his canteen, so he ate and drank in silence while Connie worked. It only took her a moment. DJ thanked her. She smiled and headed back to the rafts alone. Alfred stayed with DJ and Brad. The chief guide had also been silent. Now he asked quietly, "What bit you?" DJ hesitated, looking at Alfred, who nodded. DJ explained, "A flea. Probably came off a dead ground squirrel." Brad leaned down to look at the boy squarely in the eye. "You've seen the plague signs, haven't you? And you're scared?" "We saw part of a sign. The rest had been torn off." Brad nodded. "Just so happens we had the same problem some years back. There are lots of signs posted and they scared my passengers, so I studied up on the subject. There are two kinds of plague, one called pneumonic and the other is the Black Plague. The first kind is highly communicable. That means it can be transmitted from person to person. It kills fast, in less than 3 days." Alfred gasped. "Contagious? Of course, I should have known." DJ was surprised. So surprised, in fact, that he barely could speak. "You mean I could spread it to Alfred and you and all these other people? We could die within a few days?" "You didn't let me finish," Brad protested. "That's the pneumonic kind. The other kind is only transmitted by flea bite." TJ frowned. Not sure that he really understood, Brad explained. "Even if the flea that bit you was carrying the plague germs, you can't pass the disease to Alfred or me or anyone. In fact, DJ, you're the only one who's in danger. You can't infect anyone. But you can die if you don't get medical treatment. The plague incubation period from a flea bite is about a week." Incubation would be how long it would be in you before you got sick. "If I remember those signs correctly, they said something like, see a physician if you become ill within a week. The disease is curable when diagnosed early." Alfred exclaimed, "That part was missing on the sign we saw." "DJ," Brad continued, "you said you were bitten this morning. So if you are infected, you've got a week to see a doctor." "But the only way I could get to a doctor is by going downriver with you to the nearest town, and you won't take me." "Try to see it from my side, DJ. I'd face a double risk. You're not experienced in rafts, and suppose you get too sick to paddle or even to sit up in the boat." Alfred said quietly, "I'll take care of him." "That's noble of you, Alfred," the guide replied, "but you're inexperienced in rafts too. I could have a real tough situation on my hands." DJ grabbed at a thought. "How long's your trip going to take?" 3 days. How far are we from the first town? We go right near Summit City in 2 days. Do they have a doctor there? Yes, of course. Oh, I see what you mean. This is Saturday, so we should be at Summit City about Monday afternoon. We should be able to get you there well before the incubation period is over. DJ asked hopefully. Then you'll take us? Our fathers will pay you when they get back to pick us up. The guide hesitated a moment, studying the boys' anxious faces. Okay, on 2 conditions. First, not a word of this to anybody else, not even Connie. She works for me, so she'll do anything I say, but I don't want to scare people, even though they're perfectly safe from the disease. Fine, DJ cried. I also want you both to get some quick lessons in rafting before we shove off. Agree? Sure. Both boys said it together. Then let's meet the others so we can get started. Brad led DJ and Alfred toward the first raft and introduced them to the rafters. DJ tried to remember their names. The bearded man was Dr. George Trotman, an associate professor at the State University in Sacramento. The girl was his daughter, Renee. Hi, she said, smiling at both boys. She wore a blue tank top blouse, cut-off jeans, and gray tennis shoes. She was not very tall, with short, dark hair and brown eyes. Her tanned, bare arms showed she was an outdoor girl. Glad to have you boys along. Who are my age? Her father nodded. Boys, glad to have you join. As Brad led the boys to the next rafters, DJ was surprised to feel Alfred nudge him and whisper, She's going to be fun. DJ blinked. He never heard his best friend say anything before about a girl. One man stood by himself, staring into the river. He turned slowly when Brad called, Ray, meet another couple of our late crew members. Ray, this is DJ Dillon and Alfred Milford. Ray did not smile. He looked like a piece of well-used rawhide, thin but strong. He had an old scar above his right eye and a sour look on his long, thin face. Hello, he said. He did not offer to shake their hands. He turned to stare at the river. Don't mind him, Brad whispered to the boys as they moved on. Some people just aren't as friendly as others. Toni Horner was next. She was in her late 20s, DJ guessed. She wore a short ash blonde hair in a pixie haircut. She was a big woman, close to 6 feet, and an obvious outdoor type. Her handshake was firm, almost hard. Welcome to the adventure of your lives, boys. Brad led the boys towards the last 2 members of the rafting party. Toni and Odell Swansea. Here are another couple latecomers who had a close call with the fires. The older boys straightened up, brushed their hands against their pants, and reached out to shake hands with DJ and Alfred. Glad you know you boys. I'm Odell, and he's my kid brother, Tobin. The 16-year-old Tobin held a 6-foot hardwood maple paddle. He did not offer to shake hands. Instead, he shoved the blade of the paddle towards the boys, touching their hands rapidly in turn with the tip. Then, without a word, without even a nod, he turned and started working on the raft again. As Brad, DJ, and Alfred moved away, Alfred said softly, That's the first time I ever shook hands with an oar. Paddle, Brad corrected. We don't have any oars on these rafts. You'll learn the terms pretty soon, just as all the people will learn to know and like each other. Rafting is a way of bringing people together. Except for the Trotman and Swansea family members, everyone else was a stranger. But soon they'll all be like one big family. You'll see. Now let's go outfit you boys in wetsuits, life jackets, and crash helmets. I'll have to stow your hats and that sweater. DJ glanced at the Swansea brothers. The older one was bent over the raft, but Tobin stared at DJ with cold eyes. Tobin's lips moved, forming soundless words. DJ couldn't read them, yet he had the strangest feeling Tobin was threatening him. But why? Why indeed? That's the end of that chapter. Well, let's see how those boys do when they're headed down that river. Grade 5. That sounds scary to me. Maybe some of you have rafted before. If you have, let me know about your experience in the comments. Well, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and yours in your house and out of your house, in the day and in the night. And whatever you do, keep dreaming. Keep a story in your heart. Bye-bye.